Welcome to Family Matters. I'm your host, Ray Johnson, along with my lovely wife, Brenda. We thank you for tuning in today. And we're going to do a series of messages here to shows about marriage and relationships. And we're going to talk about priority and pursuit and possession and purity in our relationships. In this day and time, our priorities are getting out of alignment and we're losing track of our values, and that contributes a lot to the divorce rate that is going on. But we believe that these series of shows that we're going to do from a teaching that we did recently are going to really make an impact in your life. So you stay tuned and we'll be right back.
What we are going to talk about tonight, since we're going to be here next 2 or 3 months, we don't have to hurry, right? So we're going to, what we're going to talk about is building a firm foundation. Building a firm foundation. And in building that firm foundation, Brenda, you can tell them the four legs, I guess, are arms of that foundation.
The first one will be priority, setting your priorities. The second one is pursuit. Third is possession, and fourth, purity.
Okay, so that's where we're going to be going as we go down the road. So now what we're going to get into, the first leg of this foundation, as we're building this foundation here, is dealing with priority. I'm going to read one scripture here, Psalms 127:1. And it says, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. And when we're looking at that, we can look at that, you can look at it in a literal sense as building a house, but we can also look at it in a sense of looking at it, okay, building a house as in our marriage being the house that is being built. Our marriage and our relationships, and not only our marriage, but all of our relationships. Unless the Lord is the center of building that relationship, we labor in vain. Okay? So the Lord has to be the center. The principles that we operate on have to be the principles around the Word of God. All right? So that is sort of the foundation of where we're going. So now, Brenda, go ahead and deal with what we looked at in this order. Now, this order could be a little different. This is what we looked at, and we didn't put percentages, but just how we looked at how things may want to line up in a person's life. So let me get you to go ahead, and you can talk about them. I'll sort of jump in there as needed.
In number one, we have God. God should be first. Our relationship with Him should be first. Seeking Him, serving Him personally. Because every other relationship in our lives is going to be based on our relationship with God. Our strength, our self-control, all the fruit of the Spirit, all of those things that we need to deal with people, not just in marriage, but, in every relationship, co-workers, everything. That comes through your time that you spend with God. So God should be number one. And if you're not spending time with God, we know that you're not going to have what you need to stand. You're not going to have what you need. You're going to run purely off emotions in every situation. You're going to panic. You're going to go off emotions. You're not going to have anything to draw from. So that's why we say God first.
Speak to us to be that sometimes we say still small voice. Well, we needed to be a shouting voice, to lead us and guide us, not a still small voice, but a voice that shouts to us to say, don't say that now. Wait, there's another time. Timing is everything, just to be able to receive, because our flesh always wants to respond, and it wants to respond now. And that ability to be able to allow Holy Spirit to say, okay, let me use wisdom and just receive, and then there'll be another time that is a better time to address that issue rather than dealing with everything in the heat of the moment. And that's where family meetings come into play and those types of things, because something can happen. Well, you don't really like it or whatever, but you let it go. But by having that family meeting, now you're in a controlled environment, nobody's mad, and this is an issue I want to bring up. Dear, last week when whatever happened, I didn't, receive that right, and I had an issue with that, and you can discuss it in a constructive way. And things we got to understand that even as people are talking, and this is one of the things that Dr. Mike has been talking about recently, is that when it comes to offense, we so easily offended in our relationships. And we have to, what does Scripture say? Take offense. You have to literally take offense. You have to make a conscious decision that you're going to be offended. And so many times we put all the burden on the sender, and we don't take any responsibility as the receiver. You know, we have to take responsibility as how we receive. Because if we're dealing with someone who loves us, even if it doesn't come out right, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they really mean it in love and they mean it to advance us. Even if it didn't come out right, even because they were irritated when they said it or whatever. So we need to take responsibility how we hear things.
That's our next point.
Okay, go ahead.
And the next person after God is your spouse. Your spouse. Your spouse is the closest person to you after God. Your spouse should always have your best interests at heart. And he just mentioned that if your spouse says something to you, you should have a comfort level to know that, okay, he's not saying that to hurt me, or she's not saying that just to make me angry. She really did see this, or he really did see this about me. And he wants me to be the best that I can be. So I have to be able to receive that criticism. I got to be able to receive that correction from my spouse. Your spouse is the person who sees you at all times. Your spouse sees you when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're ill. That your spouse is with you during all those times. And that's the closest person to you. My husband is my best friend. My best friend. I can share anything with him. I can even tell him, leave me alone, you're getting on my nerves. You know, I can even say I'm tired, or I don't want to do that right now, or I don't want to go there. I can be honest with him, and he will allow me to be honest with him. Not be disrespectful, but I can be honest with him, and he can receive that, and he's not offended by it. The next day, he's still speaking to me. And that's the way that it should be. So your spouse is closest to you. And not your relatives.
The thing about that, spouse being the closest to you, is the one that therefore seems to take the abuse. We do things and say things to a spouse that we would never say to a coworker, or we would say to the pastor or anyone else, but we'll say them to our spouse because we also feel that, well, they have to take it. They're my spouse. Well, when are you going to take responsibility as the sender? You have to take responsibility for sending the message. You know, yes, they'll be there for you if you've had a hard day at work, but coming home to say, this happened at work and it really got on my nerves, and using them as a comfort and say, now I'm here, let me be here now, and that's behind me. Or is it, whatever happened at work, now I'm going to come home and I'm going to kick the dog on the way in, and I'm going, and I'm going to take it out on the children and take it out on my wife or husband because they're there. Well, that's not right. But that's what we have a tendency to do. We would never, speak to, if you're a member of this church, is one thing, you speak to Bishop Salter and very, cordial to him, and then you leave right out of here and talk nasty to each other. We should have more respect in our household than we have outside of our household. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And as I was saying before, your spouse takes precedence over your relatives, over your mom, over your sisters. Well, me and my sisters are so close, I tell them everything. No, you shouldn't be telling them everything. You shouldn't have your relatives in your household. You shouldn't bring your mom and your dad into your affairs and into your business. Not because you don't want to be around them, not because you don't love them, but the spouse is first. And a lot of people have difficulty making that transition. I thought about the joke about laughing. Lenny does a joke about if your mama needs shoes or your wife needs shoes.
Yeah.
Well, he talked about going to get the special, getting two, buy one, get one free.
So they both can have
so
one.
He wouldn't have to
make a
choice. but your spouse comes first.
See, Genesis 2:24 says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall both become one flesh." So that leaving your mother and father doesn't mean to abandon them. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about this relationship is the key relationship, because this is the only relationship we have that says, "Till death do we part." Okay, this is that only relationship, and we're not allowed to kill each other, you know, to get it over with early. You know, it's till death do we part. So when it says leave mother and father, that doesn't mean leave your responsibility that you might have to your mother and father, say as they become senior and older. You know what I mean? That as you transition in life, and now you may have to take care of them. But those are, again, things that we have to agree on that we're going to do. Right. So it doesn't mean abandon your family, but it does mean balance your family.
Okay. After your spouse, we have children. Children. We're raising our children to become servants of God, to be productive in the community, and we're preparing them to leave. To leave. So long after, when the children are grown and they're gone, you and your spouse are going to still be there. So if you build your relationship with your kids more than you do with your spouse, you spend all your time with your kids and you neglect this relationship, what's going to happen when the kids are gone? They have their own relationships now. They're gone their own way. They're gone to college. They've gotten married. So what are you two going to do now? So we should continue. Of course, we have to take care of the children. Of course, we have to tend to them. They're going to have certain needs, and they are going to pull on our time to a certain extent. But we can't let our marriage just fall to the ground. When the children come along, you incorporate the children, but you continue to maintenance the marriage. You don't become so possessive that, oh, nobody else can babysit our kids, so no more dates. Well, no, we have to do this for the kids and do that for the kids. So we don't have any money to go out on a date, or we don't have any money to go on a vacation, just the two of us. It's all about the kids. No, it can't be all about the kids. You have to maintain the marriage relationship. After your spouse comes the children. And a lot of times women, I think more so, will pour themselves into the children and lose the relationship with their husband. So you want to be aware of that.
And one of the things, and I don't know if anyone here has young children, this happens a lot with young children. And then, you know, men, this is training all in and of itself. When you have young children, because that child needs 100%, you know, of the attention of the mother. But the mother has to be, like Brenda said, conscious to know that I still have a husband and he still needs care. He still needs to be taken care of. And I've seen literally men get jealous of their own children. They get jealous of their own children because, oh, now I get no attention. You know, now they're going back into a child state and getting jealous of their own children because they're not getting attention.
Well, you know, some women move the kids into the bedroom and into the bed, and then the relationship is just totally cut off. Any intimacy hopes are gone. You got this baby in the bed crying and kicking, and you know that spoils everything. So you know it's important.
You know, and it reaches a point. It's like, okay, dear, he's 10. Don't you think we maybe should get him in his own bed? You know, but. See, we're not supporters of your children sleeping in the bedroom. We never did that with our children because we trained them that you have a room, you have a space, you have a bed. Okay.
Time to go to it.
There's time to go to it. You know, you do not come to ours. Of course, if they're sick or lightning, they get scared. Those are exceptions, but not the rule. Some people, they have 3 kids, and every morning they wake up, and all 3 kids are in the bed. And I'm not, you know, and they range from, 3 to 15, and they're all 3 still ending up in the bed, you know, and that's because you did not train them their place, you know, their space, and that this is the place where mommy and daddy goes, and this is their private space. So it's important to understand the priority of the children is third, but you must teach them their place. See, that's the problem. We can say that they come after our spouse. We can say that, but if you don't train them that they come after your spouse, they're going to keep wanting to take that position. They're going to want to take the position of they're the priority in the household. But that's teaching them where they stand and teaching them through even your family meetings what the priorities are. You have to teach them the priority. And what we do is we assume, and as we say, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. We assume that they know. No, they don't know. They're children. They're children. They're not going to know. You have to explain to them where they fall in the pecking order. That if it comes down to one of you and Brenda, she wins. Not allowing them to play the ends against the middle. And it's important for, as wives, to allow your husband to be the head of the household. Brenda allows me to be the head of the household. I make every decision in our household. Sometimes that might be, dear, what do you think? And she tells me, but then I make a decision, we're going to do what she said. Okay? But I made the decision. Okay? So when the kids come to her and talk about things, if I'm there, she will say, you need to ask your dad. So my kids understood that I was the authority in the household. And that they're not going to go to mom and mom's going to override what dad said. But that is a conscious thing for her to do to allow me to be the head of the household. Because depending on when people get married in their relationship, they might be independent and, well, I can make a decision, I can do this, I can do that and the other. But you have to you have to know what your roles are in your household. And then each one has to allow each one to carry out that role. You can come on in. Come on in. Allow each one to carry out that role. And we see this happen a lot. That a man, because here's a tendency. My wife is not a real talker and have all the, But, stats and all that show us that women use more words in a day than men. Okay? The average woman uses more words in a day. And that's not a bad thing. That's getting back to understanding them. They'll use more words because they're more relational. And because they're relational, you have to use more words in order to, develop that relationship. And so that's what it is. It causes more words to be used. So most women can beat a man in an argument. They can out-talk them when it comes to an argument because they use more words anyway. Men are more likely to say, well, forget it. Shut down. The argument's not over. We just are not having a verbal argument. Now we're having a silent argument. Okay? Oh, we never fight. Oh, you don't? So when you walk around not talking to each other for 3 days, that's not a fight? Some people think it's not a fight unless there's arguing going on. No, you're fighting. You're fighting. Every night you get into bed and you roll 2 different directions, you're fighting. Okay, whether you say it or not. So a woman uses more words so they can win the argument, but if they don't watch, a man will let them make a decision, and they say, well, if you're not going to make a decision, I'm just going to make one. Okay? Next thing you know, they're doing that again and again and again, and then they're going, he won't ever make any decisions. Well, you're not allowing him to make any decisions. He comes home and you've already told him all the decisions you made about the children. At that point, what is he supposed to do? Because then if he go back to the children and say, no, we're not going to do it, children go, okay, we got them now. Now they're fighting, but mom said. Well, mom's not the authority here. Well, how are they going to know if mom's not the authority, if mom didn't allow dad to make the decision? That is very important for women to allow their husbands to be the head of their household. And you relay that to your children by always deferring to, I have to talk to your dad about it, or you go talk to your dad. Because I tell you how my children are. My children are, and they're quiet. The ones the 2 that's still home now, they're quiet. I'll be sitting right there. We can both be standing here like this, and they'll go, Mom, what is Dad going to do? I'm standing here. You know, and they will ask her, and she'll go, ask him. He's right there. You know, because their tendency is to draw and cling to their mother. But if you don't realize that's their tendency, and you just start always giving the answer, you don't realize that you're just taking authority away from your husband. You're taking authority away from your husband. Because now, I don't need to go to Dad. I'm just going to go to Mom. So that's important. You know, I believe the Spirit of the Lord just led us to talk about that, but that's an important point. Okay? So that was number 3. So we got God, spouse,
you don't want to go
children.
yet.
Oh, where are we at?
Because while we're on children, we talked about the importance of the spouse being first and the children knowing this. Now, if you have a blended family, if you have a blended family, you came into the marriage and you already had children. He came, he already had children.
Does anyone here have a blended family? Okay.
Then you have to really have to be careful in this area. You have to make rules and guidelines clear right up front. Or if not, you're going to have a mess on your hands. Because in the blended family, of course, I've been with Mom. Well, I've been with Dad. Well, who's going to do this? Well, who's going to do that? Oh, now you're going to tell me what to do? Well, now he's going to tell me what to do? Mom, he just told me what to do. Hey, Dad, she just told me what to do. And you have a big mess if the parents are not on the same page.
And I think even with that, and that'd be up to Bishop, that we do the retreat in October, that even though it'll primarily be about marriage, we do a whole piece on managing the blended family. And that might be a thing that would be very profitable, in that, is managing the blended family. Because let's think about it. In this day and time, divorce rate is over 50. 60 to 70% of our children in the African American community are being born to a single. So the blended family is becoming the normal family. The blended family is becoming the normal family. So since the blended family is becoming the normal family, we need to know how to manage the blended family. Because I've had people turn blended family situations into right-out disasters. Like, we can't deal with it now, but you won't be the only ones at that retreat with blended families. And that'd be up to Bishop then, but I think it would be important for us to really delve into managing that blended family piece.
And why it fits in so great here is because we're talking about priorities and we're talking about the order. Well, the order switches. When the single parent is just the single parent, there is no spouse that comes next. The children come next. Mm-hmm. But once the marriage takes place, now the child moves down and the spouse goes in that position. So it swaps. So that's why it fits in well here with the priorities. So I didn't want to leave that out.
And that's important. And like I said, at that point, when we have a lot of time, we'll actually do a whole session on that piece. Okay?
And next we have church. And Bishop had addressed that.
This God in church. Well, when we're dealing with God in church, a lot of times the two, and as he mentioned, that those lines can get blurred, as it were, because we start thinking that what we're doing at church, our church activities and what we do at church is therefore our serving God. You know what I mean? That is our relationship with God. That is not our relationship with God. Our relationship with God is a personal thing that we have, and part of our relationship with God and how we carry out that relationship with God is by being involved in a local church and being under a local pastor. And that pastor reaps the benefit of our serving God. You're not serving the pastor, you're serving God, and this is part of what God has set up, and therefore the pastor benefits from my service to God. But it takes all of us, as it were, coming together in this local assembly to go out and have a positive impact on our community and those types of things. But some people use church just like they use children. They become distractions to keep from dealing with their spouse. So you can use your children as a distraction. You can use church activities. Dear, can we go out on a date? Well, I got to go to church. Well, everything is you got to go to church. you're doing a good thing. And we talk about doing a good thing, but you can do a good thing, but if it's not in balance, the devil comes in and takes your good thing and turns it into a bad thing. And I think you said something about that.
Yeah, because if you're on the praise team and the ushers and the greeters and you're on all these different committees and your children are failing in school because you're not home in the evenings to help them with their homework, so I can't join this one and that one and that one and that one. That means I'm going to be away from home 5 nights a week. And I have 5 kids. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. But a lot of people, like Ray said, things aren't going right at home. So I'm going to go here and I'll go to church and have fun.
I work all day, and then Bible studies at 7, so I work till 6:30, and then go to Bible study at 7, and you know what I mean?
And
so I'm just going to keep myself
apart.
so busy that I won't have to deal with my relationship. And this is what happens with a lot of children that grow up in church. They grow up and they say, I don't want to have anything to do with church. Because of church, my dad could never be at a football game, a basketball game, could never take me this because he always had to go to church. It was this meeting, it was that meeting, it was this here. So they grow up and they don't like church because they relate church to the thing that took my parents away from me. So they grow up hating God because we are the one that point our children to God. We demonstrate God to our children. And they go, I don't want to have anything to do with a God like that takes, that's going to take you away from your family. Who wants to be bothered with that kind of God? So that is important to understand, that balance what you can do at church. And when we were in California recently at Fick Whiffam, just listened to the radio, and one pastor, I don't even know who he was, just listening to the radio, he said he decided years ago in his ministry, he said, my ministry is only going to be as great as 45 hours a week will make it. That was the decision he made. He said, it's going to be as good as 45 hours of my time a week will make it. Because I'm not going to neglect my wife. I'm not going to neglect my children. I am not going to be married to the church. And he said, you know what? There were a lot of meetings that I just had to miss. There were just things that happened that I just couldn't be there. And guess what? They still went on. They still happened. And he has a thriving ministry. But he made a commitment that, see, if we don't have a plan for ourselves, everyone else will be glad to take care of planning your time for you. If you don't prioritize your time, everybody else, they'll be glad to. Because people have visions and they have goals and they need to carry them out and they need people. And this is just not in church, not with pastors, it's just in life. And if you don't have anything to do, I got stuff I need to get done, and I'll be glad to pull you into my stuff to get my stuff done. And that's what they'll do. They'll pull you in to get my stuff. I need you to come get my stuff done. Now, you don't have time to get any of your own stuff done, to carry out your own vision and those types of things. So that is important.
Well, I'm sure you've enjoyed this show on today. And as I say, we're going to continue to talk about marriage and talk about it in a positive way and give you some tools that can make a difference in your family and your relationship. So as always, we thank you for tuning in, and we just hope and pray that you'll continue to have a family of love, joy, and peace. Until next time, you have a great day.